Hello and welcome to the Oxygenaddict Triathlon podcast. We're brought to you every week by our sponsors tgstore.co.uk,
the home of premium sportswear including Gore bikewear, Gore running wear and Aquasphere wetsuits. You can get 10% off with the code Oxygenaddict10.
Our next sponsor is precisionhydration.com,
who are leaders in triathlete sweat testing and hydration with multi-strength electrolytes that match how you sweat. There's a 15% off product with the code Oxygenaddict15.
and Team Oxygen Addict. That's at team.oxygenaddict.com.
And that is online triathlon coaching. So it's event-specific training plans, coaching guidance from coach Rob Wilby and supportive teammates in a private Facebook group.
And we also want to give a big shout out to our patrons who help support the show with either a monthly or a yearly donation. We've had loads of people sign up recently for that. So we really, really appreciate all you guys who've come along and done that for us. So thanks a lot. And welcome to the show. How are you, Hells?
Rob, I'm good, thank you. It's been all go, 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 go. I seem to have not stopped for the last week. But anyway.
It's all good though, isn't it?
It's all good. And oh my God, how good was our run on Friday? We had our first running outing, didn't we? You and I. It was amazing.
Yeah, we met up and we went for a swift hour through Tatton Park. Helen put the hurt on me, and I'm going to have to invest in some trail shoes, Helen. It was like running in an ice rink for me in my road shoes.
It was a little bit muddy and Rob was sliding all over the place. It was kind of funny.
It was funny.
Can't
recommend a better way to have a business meeting than to have it on foot as you're moving through a beautiful location. It's fantastic, isn't it?
Oh, and I arrived there, didn't I? A bit like, oh, I'm really tired. I've just been at work on silly early shifts, and then I get there, start running, start chatting, and suddenly, woohoo, it's Friday!
It's all good, and you livened my Friday up as well, mate, so thank you.
Oh, it was great fun.
Oh, cool. Hey, well, listen, one of the cool things we got to talk about is we've got a new sponsor on the show, haven't we?
We have. Now, I mentioned them there at the very beginning, tgstore.co.uk. Rob, what else can you tell me about tgstore.co.uk? I've had a quick look, but you've obviously know more about them.
Well, TG, I think the TG stands for the Gore store. I'm guessing that's the thing, because they sell 90% of their stuff is like Gore bikewear and Gore running wear. So we were really we were really super lucky actually. Andy, who runs the store, contacted me. He's a long-time listener of the show, and he said, I'd like to sponsor you guys. I really like your show and think it's really good fun, and yeah, can I sponsor you? And I was like, too right, you can. What'd you do? So I went and had a look, and it's dead easy to promote a product that you really like and that you use already, isn't it? That's the key thing here. It'd be really difficult for me to be advertising like mattresses or razors or something like that, but I've been wearing Gore running wear and Gore biking wear forever, and they sell loads of really cool stuff on there. So my go-to running jacket has always been the Gore, those thin pack-light Gore running jackets, the Gore-Tex pack-light running jackets.
I have one myself, Rob.
They are just, I've had mine now for about, what have I had it for? Must be 12 years. And I wouldn't say it's still in perfect condition because it's had some abuse over the years. But it's still a lot better than most jackets out there. I've recently upgraded to a new one, but I still, how when you really like an old piece of clothing and you don't want to change it, and I still go out in the old one because it's super thin and it's just brilliant for those days like today. I'm going to go for a run when we finish talking, Hells, and the jacket is definitely going on because it's still belting down here. I don't know what it's like at your end.
Yeah, pretty minging, to be honest. Pretty minging. No, I know what you mean. You get a product and you just don't want to get rid of it, and you wear it and wear it and wear it, and then suddenly you're like, oh, actually, maybe I should get a pair of new leggings. There's a hole in a place where there shouldn't be a hole. Yeah. It's
never the same as the old one, though, is it? You always go back to what's comfy. Right, so listen, go over and check it out, tgstore.co.uk. If you're after any new bike wear or running wear or even a wetsuit, go and check them out. They've got loads of good deals on, and if you use the code, like we said, Oxygenaddict10, you'll get 10% off anything that isn't in their outlet or clearance section. So pretty good. Support the guys who support the show. I think you can all go and treat yourselves to a new winter running or biking jacket, because it looks like it's going to snow here this week, doesn't it, mate?
It does. I reckon overshoes, Rob, they've got a nice pair of bright overshoes on their website as well, which look quite cool.
Overshoes, gloves, that's what you need, Helen.
Yeah.
You need to go and find like the thickest pair of winter gloves you've got there and give us a report on them.
I'll do some homework, Rob.
So thanks very much to Andy and the team over at TG Store. We really appreciate you supporting the show, and we couldn't do it without you, literally. So thank you guys very much. And something else that they said they're going to do that's incredibly kind is they're going to do a monthly competition for our listeners. So we haven't got the details of the landing page through yet, but what they're going to do is they're going to set up a page. You can go over, you enter your email address, and you're going to go in a monthly draw to win either a running jacket or a cycling jacket. So well worth doing in exchange for your email address. The other thing they said they're going to do, Hells, is give us £100 voucher for our 2017 charity fundraiser appeal, which we can now talk about.
That is awesome. Fill us in, Rob.
So the 2017 Oxygenaddict Triathlon podcast charity appeal. You guys will know that I talked about my friend Mark Moose Mills, who sadly passed away last summer. And we decided, Helen and I, we're going to have a charity appeal every year. And this year we decided that we're going to make our charity of choice the family of Mark, who was my longtime training partner and mentor and stuff. So what we've done is we've set up a Just Giving crowdfunding page. The address for it is justgiving.com/crowdfunding/podcast. So easy to remember. And over there, what we're doing is basically an appeal to raise money for Mark's family. He left behind a wife and 2 young kids, and we're trying to raise some money to help cover his medical bills and basically pay back to his family the kindness that he showed me in his life. So here's where it gets interesting, Helen.
Go on.
I have lent on everybody who's ever been on the show, sent them out a nice email saying, could you please help us out with an article of clothing or a book or something that you wouldn't mind giving us a once in a lifetime prize for. Now, anybody who donates to the appeal will be super grateful for. Anybody who donates £20 or more is going to get a ticket for our prize draw to win one of these prizes that people have sent in. And we've been mentioning it as a big thank you to people who become patrons of the podcast. If you were a patron of the podcast before the 31st of December, we said you were going to get a surprise. The surprise is you're getting a free ticket for this prize draw. So that's another extra thank you for becoming patrons of the show. So far we've got confirmed prizes from, shall I go through them? I'm dead excited about
Go
this.
Go on.
Right, so Yvonne van Vlerken, God bless her. Do you remember we talked about Yvonne? She's got like a YouTube video that's had 1 million hits on of her in the shower testing out whether that white swimsuit is see-through or not.
Right.
She sent us that swimsuit. She's going to sign it and she's sending us that. So I was like, well, that's pretty awesome. And I went and just did my research and checked this video just to make sure. It's had like 1 million hits on YouTube.
Oh my God.
So nice work, Yvonne. That's a way to promote yourself for sure.
I tell you, that is unique. That is a unique. Money cannot buy that.
Well, there's a few of those coming. Siri Lindley is sending us a signed autographed copy of her book. Beck Keat is sending us a trucker's cap and some stuff from Team Sirius. Lionel Sanders is sending us a signed race suit, one of his signed race suits, like the one that he broke the world record in. It's not the actual one, but it's like that. Matt Dixon is sending us loads of stuff through from the athletes that he coaches. He's leaning on all of those to send us through bits and bobs. So details to be confirmed going forwards. Andy Blow has hooked us up with a free precision hydration in-person sweat test, like we're going to hear about you having later on, Hells.
Yep.
Which is awesome. Will Clark says he's going to send us through a signed item of clothing. Kevin Collington, who I've just interviewed, who's one of Matt Dixon's athletes, he's going to be on in a couple of weeks, and he's sending us through a signed set of complete race kit from Hoka 11. And there's more prizes to be announced as well. 4i Power Meters and their parent company have sent through a set of those Jawbone headphone things and one of their 4i chest monitor heart rate straps. So loads of really cool prizes coming through, and hopefully there'll be more coming through as well as people reply to these emails. So please donate. It's a very worthy cause, and hopefully you'll be lucky and you'll win yourself a once in a lifetime prize in our prize draw. Fingers crossed, eh?
That is awesome. So the website again is justgiving.com/crowdfunding/podcast. Any donation is much appreciated.
Absolutely.
If you donate £20 or more, you'll be given a ticket for a raffle to win one of those prizes that Rob just mentioned. And if you donate £50, you'll get 3 tickets for that raffle.
Absolutely. There you go. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening to that. And if you can help out my friends, family, I'd be very grateful. Right, where are we now, Hells? What are we talking about next?
What we're talking about next, I think we are talking about, there's just
Results?
one result to bring you, isn't there?
It is. So results this week sponsored by tgstore.co.uk. Get over to our new sponsor and get yourself some nice new cycling swag or running swag from Gore Clothing.
Yeah, and the one result to bring you is from New Zealand, isn't it? Which was the Port of Tauranga half, which took place at the weekend, and both Braden Currie and Amelia Wilkinson defended their titles.
I think it's Amelia Watkinson.
I was going to say, actually. It is Watkinson. It's totally Watkinson.
Yeah.
I read that, and I'm like, no, that's not right.
Yeah, it's a typo, isn't it, in the article we got off Slow Twitch. And I think Amelia's mum corrected it further down.
Oh, good.
In the Facebook comments, he's like, Wilkinson? Really?
Oh, yes, I hadn't.
So there we go. Now, so it's all right. So Amelia Watkinson takes the win. What's interesting here, obviously, Braden Currie takes the win, but second place, still going strong, Cameron Brown, 44 years young.
That's amazing, isn't it? Shaping up nicely, Rob, for Ironman New Zealand.
How many times has he won that now? Can you remember? Has he won it?
Oh, that's a good question.
Is it 12 times?
That's something insane, isn't it?
It really is.
It is absolutely impressivo. And Amelia is going to be, isn't she going to be like Emma Pallant's new teammate?
Oh, is that right? Good knowledge.
Yeah. On
really good.
BMC, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So Braden Currie takes the male win in 3:45, Cam Brown second in 3:47, and Hayden Wild third in 3:48.
Yep, and then so Amelia got the win. Julia Grant of New Zealand second in 4:19, ahead of Teresa Adam, again of New Zealand, in 4:20.
And a shout out to British athlete Alison Wilson in 4th place as well.
Yep, nice work.
There you go. Cool stuff. So not really a huge amount happening in the world of results at the moment, obviously with it being early January still, but it'd be interesting, wouldn't it, to be down in Australia and New Zealand and know that there's all these races going on that we just haven't found out about.
Yeah, there's, because for them it's the middle of summer, so it's like the middle of their season, isn't it, with I guess the break for Christmas in the middle, but big sort of important part of the calendar for the Southern Hemisphere at the moment.
Yeah, coolio. Right, Coach's Couch this week. We've had a question in from Danny Mansfield. Now, Coach's Couch is sponsored by Team Oxygenaddict. Just to give you a shout out, we are opening for new applications for team members from Monday the 16th of January. So if you're interested in coming and joining the team and being coached by me online and getting in our private Facebook group, it'd be awesome to hear from you. All you need to do at the moment is just go to team.oxygenaddict.com, and if you follow the link through, we've got a waiting list. Now, we've had a tremendous amount of interest in this time, Hals. It's been bonkers. We've got over 100 people on the waiting list for the team, and we said we're going to restrict it to 100 members joining at this intake time. So if you want to get in, you're going to have to be on the waiting list for sure. When those 100 slots are gone, we'll be closing it down. So you guys get over there and check it out if you're interested. And let's do this week's question from Danny Mansfield.
Yeah, so Danny got in touch with us on Twitter. And Danny says, I'm attempting my first half Ironman this year. He's doing the Outlaw Half, which we have mentioned before is not an Ironman branded event, but it's one of the biggest non-Ironman branded half Ironman distance races in the UK. They do a full distance as well. So anyway, he's doing the Outlaw Half.
Comparable size and a comparable setup, isn't it?
Totally. And then he's doing Staffordshire 70.3. And he says, any ideas on recovery and ticking over with the races being a month apart?
Cool. Well, first up, you've got to say hats off to Danny, don't you? For I'm doing my first half Ironman and then I'm doing another one again 4 weeks later. That's brilliant. Love the attitude, Danny. So the first thing I think to think about is you're going to have to prioritize one of the events over the other and kind of I'd suggest making the Outlaw Half your goal event and train for that. And then what you've got the opportunity to do is a week or so of refreshing, a couple of weeks of training, and then about a week of kind of tapering down again for Staffordshire. The first thing to say about this is, if it's your first half Ironman, I think it's fair to say, Helen, you're going to have to expect to be sore after it for a good few days, aren't you?
Yeah, I remember the Thursday after I did my first one, I tried to run, and I did run, but then that absolutely wiped me out for about 2 weeks.
Yeah. I think you've reasonably got to look in that week after your half Ironman. The entire week's focus has got to be about recovery. So don't even think about running before Thursday. And the caveat there is, don't run until your quads aren't sore again. That would be my advice to you. I've been the same, Hells. If I do a hard half Ironman, I can't do anything until the Friday in terms of anything hard, because I'm just so sore. And a lot of the time it feels like my legs are going to bend backwards like a crane as I'm walking.
Yeah.
My quads are going to give out. So if you plan for that and you expect it, that's okay. If you don't plan for it and you think you're going to go for a run with your mate on Tuesday evening, having had a day off, you're going to be in a whole world of trouble. So first week is, give yourself a day off the day after the race. And if you want to do anything, give yourself a nice recovery swim or a 20 to 30 minute recovery spin on the bike in a really easy gear. And the whole focus of those first 3 days is all about getting blood pumped through your muscles at a really low intensity so that you can clear away any waste products and try and help the muscles heal, because you're damaged, aren't you, Hells? That's the bottom line. Your muscles are damaged and they need to recover and repair before you can do any kind of fitness training, and that's going to be at least 4 days. So you can do gentle cycling during that week. You can do gentle swimming, and usually I think you'll find from probably Tuesday or Wednesday you can do real swimming sets again, and you need to play that by ear and decide whether you're going to get more out of just having a recovery swim. I think most people, when they've built up to their first Ironman, are going to need some kind of break afterwards. So 2 or 3 or 4 days of, I'm not really doing anything other than stuff that's going to help me feel better.
Other than food.
Yeah, get some extra sleep. And asking your children not to punch you on the thighs or jump on you too much. And then I think when you get to the weekend after, I think you can kind of segue back into real training, and you've got to look at having a sort of 2-week training window there before you start to ease off again for that second event. And so you'll already have all the volume and stuff in the bag. So my advice would be to do something a little bit more lively in terms of, firstly, look at doing some stuff on the bike, so sweet spot efforts or even some FTP work where you're doing stuff at 90% to 100% of FTP, and you want your intervals to be in the range of, I'd say, 5 to 8 minutes with about a minute to a minute and a half's recovery. That kind of stuff can be really fun because you'll have bounced back from your first race and feel you've got loads of fitness, and doing a bit more top end stuff can leave you feeling really sharp for that next race. I think in terms of running, you want to be doing plenty of steady running and then maybe one weekly, slightly faster than goal half Ironman race intervals or longer intervals there. So again, 5 to 10 minutes or chunks of up to 30 minutes. And again, that's going to let you feel like you're sharpening up ready for that second race. And in terms of swimming, you can do any kind of swimming training there. CSS stuff will work really well where you're doing harder swims that are going to kind of peak you for that second event. So with a month between the two, I think it's not uncommon that you could expect to have a better performance at that second one than you did at the first one, without really feeling like you've got to put in a huge volume of training in between the two of them.
And Rob, would you take the run easier on that? Let's say the second race is your A race for the season. Would you take the run on the first half Ironman you're doing a little bit easier, or can you just go for it? Because there's
I'd say with 4 weeks apart, I would say you can go for it on both of them. I think my advice is different if someone is racing an Ironman and they're doing a half Ironman in preparation for that. But in this case, I think just give it the full beans on the run. And, you're going to be really sore afterwards anyway, so you may as well get a bang for your buck by racing as hard as you can.
Superb. Danny, good luck with your training and with both races.
Let us know how you get on, Danny, for sure. We'll be interested to hear how that first half Ironman goes. It'll make an interesting story for the listeners, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and the recovery in between.
Yeah. Send us a tweet. My legs really hurt. All right, over to this week's interview. We've got the second part of our brilliant interview with Lionel Sanders. We had loads of good positive comments back after the first part. In this second part, we really get down to talking about his races at Kona and his race at Ironman Arizona. So your Kona experience then, you've got yourself out of the water, you've got a deficit to make up. How was your perception of your day at Kona?
I mean, I think one thing that worked to my advantage and to Kienle and to Mickey Weiss and other stronger bikers' advantage was, I think the sort of backlash after 70.3 Worlds made the referees a little more, like Jimmy Riccatello, the head referee, a little more anal about the drafting. So when I went by the penalty tent at about 40K, there was like 6 guys who were potential winners of the race in the penalty tent. And I just smiled because I thought, all right, this is fantastic. And so I was having a great ride. I was pushing not great power, but yet I was making up lots of time and going up the climb to Hawi. I had never, I've dreamed of hearing the helicopter overhead. And I came up to the turnaround, and there's the helicopter overhead. I was only about 1 minute and 15 seconds, so multiply it by 2.5 minutes down to the front of the race at the turn. The unfortunate part, though, so I was massively motivated, but the unfortunate part was I just hadn't done truly any work for the Kona race. I had put all my marbles in the 70.3 race, and I literally did nothing. No long rides, no long runs, nothing to prepare for Kona. I basically was testing, can you prepare exclusively for a 70.3 with no thought given to an Ironman and then race a good Ironman? And, at about 120K into that bike, my body basically said, well, that's it. That's what we've trained to do. We've trained for 4 hours of racing, and I'm done now. And so, the next 60K of that bike ride were very, very painful. But I basically tried to drill it and keep my power even. And then I hopped off the bike, and by 5K into the run, I was already saying, oh, my God, this is going to be the most painful experience you have ever experienced. And by coming up Palani, I already, that's about 10 miles into the race, I already was having to walk. And by that point, once I started walking, I just couldn't run anymore. I had to jog/walk for the next 23 kilometers. And it basically was just every aid station. So what is that? 16 aid stations basically was this internal battle of, okay, that's it, I'm dropping out. Okay, that's it, I'm dropping out 16 times in a row. And, it was just massively embarrassing. I had the fastest run split at 70.3 Worlds just a month prior. And then basically I got myself into 8th at one point, and then I ended up finishing 29th. So I got passed by 21 guys, which I must say, it certainly renewed my belief in the positive human spirit and everything in Ironman, because, I would say 50% of those guys who came by asked me if I was all right and if I needed a gel or something like that. So,
oh, God bless them. That's so nice, isn't it? In a World Championships as well.
Yeah, big time. So it was a humbling experience, and it was, embarrassing, and it was painful, and it was everything, all your bad words you want to use to describe it. But I take pride in that I finished, and that I did give it everything I had with what I had on the day. It's just, I'd say the biggest lesson I learned after that race was it was disrespectful to think that you could do that you could go do an Ironman in some of the most extreme conditions that we do this sport, and think that you can just wing it. That was disrespectful, and I will never make that mistake again.
So had you literally not done any long rides or long runs longer than the ones to prepare for your 70.3 before Kona then?
I did a 4-hour ride 1 week before Kona because I was insecure. So I did a 4-hour ride to see if I could ride for 4 hours. And the longest run I had done in the 2 months leading into Kona was 25 kilometers.
Wow.
Otherwise, everything was about my bike rides were about 2 hours, and my run workouts usually ended at 20K.
And so how much of Yeah, well, we're going to come and talk about the performance at Arizona now, and I'm interested to find out how much possibly of the incredible performance you put out there was maybe down to the, as you said, the humbling experience you had at Kona. Do you think there's something in that?
For sure. I mean, I was embarrassed. That was the biggest thing. Was my sponsors don't pay me to go to a thing and walk jog. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I felt like I let my sponsors down. I feel like I let my fans down. And that is very motivating. But what I knew was that I was in great shape. I was in very good physiological shape because, at 70.3 Worlds, I had a very good swim. I pushed 364 normalized watts for 2 hours and 6 minutes on the bike. And then I ran 320 per kilometer off the bike for 21K. So physiologically, I was in great shape. So I knew, and this was the hypothesis, once again, that I was testing going into Arizona, was, okay, now it's time to bring in the long stuff. Let's get the long stuff in. And I had a feeling that a lot of it was neurological. Just like when you first start lifting weights, you can bench press on day one, like, let's say 100 pounds, and within like 3 weeks, you'll put your bench pressing like 150 pounds, like it changes very, very quickly. It's not
I like
muscular.
that analogy. Yeah, the change happens too quickly for it to be a physiological change, doesn't it?
That's right. It's a neurological thing that all of a sudden, with some stimulation, suddenly the muscles can activate better, that they can continue to fire for longer, all that sort of stuff. So I tested that, and basically what I did was I increased the duration of my long ride, my long run, and then my long day, which was basically piggybacked onto my long ride. And I got up to a 40K long run, three 5-hour long rides, of which I would swim 1 hour before and I would run 1 hour off the bike. So 3 7-hour continuous long days. And so that's what I built up to over the 5 weeks leading into Arizona. And by the end, on day, the first time I did that, well, I should say the first 30K run, because that was the first one, it was massively painful. I think I averaged like 418 per kilometer. And by the 40K run that I did 4 weeks later, I was able to go 357 per kilometer, and it wasn't that painful. And same as on the long ride, I think I averaged like 220 watts for the first 5-hour long ride that I did, and I think I ran like 420 per K for the hour off the bike. And then by the couple weeks later, or whatever, a week and a half before Arizona, I was able to push 260 watts for the 5 hours with no lull, and then I was able to run. I covered something like close to 16 kilometers in that hour off the bike, and it also wasn't that painful. So it was amazing to see how quickly the endurance came because I was already in very good shape when I started the endurance training.
Yeah, that's something we talk about a lot, is that, getting your functional threshold power really high, training hard indoors, and then once you've got fast and strong on the bike, it's relatively simple to put the distance on, and you're faster at every single distance you ride at, aren't you?
Yes. Someone put it very well, actually. It was something like, get fast to go long fast.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I like that. We should copyright that. We'll have it for a tagline. Now, the thing I really love about your blog, the address is lsanderstry.com if people want to go and check it out, is how you've detailed all of this. I'm a massive geek with all of this stuff, and I love reading through people's write-ups with case splits and the power and stuff. So I think it will really surprise people, like it surprised me to read through it and see, wow, that first 5-hour ride at 220 watts, no disrespect to yourself, but that's not an incredible amount of power to be putting out for 5 hours, is it at all? And yet It really hurt you because you didn't have the endurance to go that far. And then in a 4-week time period, all of a sudden you're riding that at 270 watts. So one thing I wanted to ask you about was you seem to have this very polarized approach to training, where you either go really, really hard at sort of way above race pace, or you go really easy at way below the race pace. And that's something that seems to be working really well for you.
Yeah, I'm a big believer. I think that's applicable to everyone. I don't think it's just like pros or whatever. I think that is a very, very sound way to train. and just obviously in different durations, and the intensities will be a bit different based on, whatever your race paces are. But yeah, like in the summertime, I basically, well, I'll even go from this year. I'm starting my first threshold interval workouts are starting at 360 watts, which is what I pushed for at 70.3 World. So that's like the starting point for the year is 10 minuters at 360 watts, and they're only going to get more. And I hope to work up to about, something like 5 or 6 by 10 minutes at 410 to 420 watts come 70.3 Worlds next year. And for the most part, I won't ever do anything until we get to basically a month before 70.3 Worlds. I won't do anything under 370 watts whatsoever, nothing. And same is true on the run. All my intervals, so my race pace there was 3 minutes and 20 seconds per kilometer. I'd like to bring that down, let's say, to 3:18 per kilometer this year. So very soon, basically tomorrow when I do my run workout, I'm starting for threshold stuff at 3:18 per K, and that's the starting point. And I will only get faster on those threshold as the year progresses. And that's how I go about it. Of course, in the beginning, you can't do very much volume at that.
Sure.
But what I, and I think this is basically the basis of training is just varying the little knobs, one being the intensity. So some workouts I'll do stuff more at, let's say, 12.5 miles an hour, which is like a 3-minute kilometer. So those will be more of my VO2 max kind of style workouts. And then, I'll vary from as the season goes on. Maybe I'll start off with 4 or 5 of those, and as the season goes on, I might get up to 10 or 12 of those. And then varying the rest in between those. And then same as with the threshold stuff, varying the quantity of them. The intensity will work up over time, and then the rest will decrease over time. And that's basically what training is. It's just, toying around with these various knobs and trying to stimulate the body in different ways and force it to change. And, I tested this last year, 2015, the idea that spending time at race pace makes race pace easier. And I tested it for a whole season, basically. And I concluded that the answer to that is no. Spending time above race pace and then significantly below race pace is what will make race pace easier.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and it's brilliant to have a sort of like the crash test dummy of this idea being someone who's operating at the very highest level, because I've seen this with my athletes as well, and I think there's a lot in it. It's like the top end stuff carves the engine out, it bores the engine out and makes it bigger, and the low end easy stuff helps the engine run smoothly for a long period of time, and the stuff in between really doesn't seem to give you much bang for your buck at all, does it?
No, I mean, it amasses a lot of fatigue, and it doesn't physiologically, if you can push something on the bike, let's say, for instance, like Ironman pace, in Arizona, I pushed 315 watts for the 4 hours and 4 minutes. If you can do something for 4 hours, you already have the machinery to do that. Like there's no, spending more time at 315 really isn't going to do much unless you want to do it for 6 hours or something like that. But how you're going to get better machinery to push more power for 4 hours is by pushing more power than 315 watts, pushing 340. I won't do anything for Ironman. It wasn't until basically, my week before my taper that I allowed myself to, do closer to race pace. I did 2 by an hour at about 330 watts indoors with, you don't have the full body cooling like you do outside, so it probably was more equivalent to like 340. But I mean, that was the lowest interval workout I did all year was 330 watts for 2 by an hour with 10 minutes recovery in between each.
And it was really interesting here that you went to Arizona, and for the people who don't remember, you went 7:44 at Arizona, which is the fastest ever recorded time in an official Ironman. And obviously there's Jan and Andreas have been faster at Challenge Roth, but you rightly got a lot of kudos for the fact that 7:44 is mind-blowingly fast, and even more so when you consider that just a couple of years ago you were getting massive plaudits for going 7:58 and going under 8 hours there. So there's been a massive improvement in your performance just in that couple of years from there. Did you have the confidence in yourself going into it? I mean, now we've got the background to this and the fact that you hadn't done any work for Kona. you really have had a very limited. I mean, what were we talking after Kona to Arizona? Was it 6 weeks or less than that? Even 4 weeks, was it?
Yeah, it was about 6 weeks, just because of the way the weeks and everything worked out in a long month of October.
So how confident were you in yourself that you were? I mean, I imagined you going into this and you were, super confident you were going to go in and try and hit this record. But it doesn't sound like that was the case. It sounds like you were kind of giving it a roll of the dice almost.
Yeah, I knew it because of those workouts and the way they progressed, the long day and the long run. I knew that I was getting into good shape, but I mean, you never know until you go out and execute a race pace. I hadn't done 4 straight hours at race pace or nothing like that. I had an intuition that I'd be able to do it off of that 2 by an hour workout because it wasn't that painful. But I was unsure for sure. When I went into it, I definitely said first and foremost, we've come here to win and we've come here to compete. And so, any thought of times or anything were irrelevant. That I was going there to compete and do the best with what I had. So, and then thinking about 2015, I had rode 4 hours. I think I swam 54 minutes. I rode 4 hours and 13 minutes, and then I ran 2:47. So going into it, I knew that wasn't, well, first of all, the biggest thing for me on the bike was that I had improved aerodynamically pretty significantly since the year previous. And I made some changes after Kona. I dropped my front end 5 centimeters, which made my position a lot more aggressive. And it made me recruit my glutes a lot more, which has been a problem. And I think it has had a negative impact on both my biking and my running. So I made that change too, which I think was important. So I knew it wasn't going to be a stretch to bike, quite a bit faster. And I thought the number for me, I thought I could do about 4:07. So to come in and do 4:04 was sort of gave me some fat anyway on the 7:45 time. And then I also in Arizona the year previous, I had to stop into the Porta-John 4 times. I was having, terrible gastrointestinal problems. And I figured, that had to have added, because I had a one-piece suit.
Oh,
and
nice.
I had to take it on and off every time.
That's no fun.
I had to have added several minutes to my run time. So I did the math on all this, and I said, you know what? If you have the best swim of your life, you bike 4:07, and then you run close to 2:40, you've got a shot at breaking 7:45. So I won't say that I wasn't aware of what it would take and what that it might be possible, but I wasn't going into it with that thought. Absolutely not.
Yeah. And so the thing that comes across in your blog is, you had a storming swim, which sets you up for a great day. You had an even faster bike than you were expecting with the 4:04. You didn't come off the bike in the lead. There was a chap just in front of you, wasn't there, who you ran down within a couple of miles. And I've got to give the tip of the hat here to your fiance, whose name I've forgotten. I'm sorry. Erin was on it all day with the Periscope, and I kept flicking Twitter on just randomly and watching you run by and ride by and thinking this is better than the actual coverage. So she should set herself up a little media company, I think.
Yeah, on that note, it's hilarious actually to me because Tempe has one of Arizona State University's 60,000 person campus, the biggest campus in the United States. It would take nothing. I think this is what area where WTC could really improve. It would take nothing to give the project in all these races that we have, to give the project to a local school, even a high school.
Yeah. And
it cost us $50 to get unlimited. We bought a SIM card and unlimited data, and for $50, and Erin by herself was able to put together, at one point I think she had 1,200 people watching one of the Periscope feeds.
Yeah.
And imagine, on a $500 budget, you give this project to a group of, kids in media class, get one of them on the back of a motorcycle at the front of the race, one on another motorcycle watching the chase pack for both the men's and women's races, and then do the same on the bike and or rather on the run. It would be great coverage, and you could do it to basically every race, at least the ones, that have bigger fields, and it would cost under $500. So it certainly isn't a budgetary reason why we're not getting great coverage.
Well, she was great because I was sitting there and you could hear her talking over it, and who was in the lead off the bike? I've forgotten.
Cameron Worth from Australia.
There you go. Yeah, he came by and you could hear Erin talking, and then you came by and I was like, this is amazing. It's in real time, and it was my first taste, certainly, and I'm maybe a bit behind the curve, but my first taste of how effective social media can be in that live arena.
Yeah,
she did a great job, man. You should give her a big pat on the back for that.
Yeah, I think there's so much more room to improve, though, and it wouldn't take much. And like I said, there were 1,200 people watching at one point, so obviously there's a demand, and those are the people who are watching, who are diehards of the sport, who it's going to inspire, and from WTC's perspective anyway, buy more stuff, buy more entries, all that kind of stuff, just because you're thinking about it. So
yeah. So listen, you went out hard on the run. You went, well, not particularly hard compared to your ability, but you were running 6-minute miles, and I was watching this all the way through the halfway point thinking, well, he's on for a that's 2:36:30 pace, isn't it, 6-minute miles? And I was thinking, well, maybe he's going to fade a little bit, but you went through 13, 14, 15 miles still at this pace, and I was thinking, this is going to be one of the performances of all time. So reading your blog, and it says I was really starting to hurt by 15 miles, and at 17 the wheels were really starting to come off. Talk us what was going through your head at that point.
Well, the whole thing was calculated because I knew okay, I put in 5 weeks of good training, and I knew my endurance had improved, but I wasn't kidding myself. I knew I think to have my best race there, I would have needed another 5-week block. So I knew that the run was going to be the one that was going to suffer, and it was going to be the second half of that run that was going to be poor. Whether it didn't matter what pace I ran that run at, I was going to have a serious endurance lull at about, well, I was thinking about 13. So to make it to 15 and actually to 17 with some push, I was actually pretty surprised. So, at 17, basically, I think I had slowed down to about 6:45 per mile, something like that. And I knew that I was losing time, so quickly that I was like, you know what, the record 7:45, not possible. It's just another. I couldn't even imagine running another 9 more miles at that pace. So I basically stopped looking at my watch, and I just ran the next 6 miles. I wanted to keep it honest, of course, and I did my absolute best, but not on the pace required to get under 7:45. But then at mile 23, Erin was waiting there, which really took me aback because usually she's just waiting for me at the finish line, and it was quite a ways away from the finish line. So that kind of surprised me. And then she jogs next to me for a few steps and starts yelling at me that the record is yours if you want it. And usually in that scenario, I usually say, sorry, babe, I don't got it. I'm dying. There's no way. But this time I said nothing, and it just sort of reverberated around in my head. And I went through, it was just before an aid station, and I went through the aid station, and I got a glass of really ice cold water. And the moment it hit the back of my throat, for whatever reason, it was like I woke up, and what she said, registered in my brain. And I thought to myself, like, you are going to regret this so bad if you don't push it and just smash this to the best of your ability right now. And so then that's basically what I did. I picked up the pace by probably like 2 seconds per mile, and it felt like I was sprinting. And so then I just kept picking it up, pushing myself, and I actually started yelling at myself. I started saying, come on. and people on the other side, because it's an out and back section, people on the other side thought I was crazy. Well, some of them thought I was crazy, and some of them were like getting into it too, and I think getting fired up too. Yeah. But anyways, it allowed me all of a sudden, after, over the course of about a mile, I was back down to about 6:15 per mile, and it's the most painful thing I've ever done, but I was able to finish those final 2 miles in about 6:15 per mile. And, if you do the math on that, I think I was about 90 seconds or so under the Marino's time of 7:45:58. And, had I carried on at 6:45 to 7-minute miles, I would have been above that time. So, it was a massive. If Erin wasn't there to give me that, I wouldn't have been able to get under.
Wow, it's just incredible. And are you tempted? Would you like to get out to Roth? Would you like to get over there and ride on that course and see what happens? Because it does
For
have a
sure.
reputation as being another really fast course with an incredible atmosphere there, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it is 100% on my to-do list, but I'm not really there yet. I'm still improving, I think, in all three disciplines. And so that, I believe, for me will be sort of when I get more towards the end of my career, I will go to Roth and I will try and smash that once I have reached my potential on the swim, the bike, and the run, and I feel like I can't really go any faster. Then I will go there and I'll smash that one as hard as I possibly can. But it's not. I'm not there yet. I want to. This year, I think it's a perfect time. This race really set me up. This one in Arizona. I think my sponsors believe now that I can do well at the Ironman distance. So now is a better time than ever for me to really sort of put the Ironman on the back burner and really focus on my swimming and get really serious about that. And so that's what I'm going to do, for the next 1 or 2 years anyway.
Yeah.
And really try and get my swim closer to the front.
What bike and gear are you riding at the moment, with having been so fast on there?
I'm on the bike. I was a Garneau pretty much from head to toe. Bike, helmet, shoes, kit. And then I rode the head Jet 9 wheel and 90 front wheel with. I was using the Vittoria Corsas for a lot of the year, but then I found out aerodynamically that the Conti 4000s pair up better with the heads, so I switched over to those for both Kona and Arizona. And then on the run, I was wearing Skechers shoes.
Nice stuff. Hey, well, listen, I've got one final question for you before we wrap this up. On your perfect day, at the end of your career, when you're really going for it, let's say you may be at Roth or wherever, how fast do you think you can go? What do you think your ultimate potential is?
I mean, I think this is the beauty of it, and I think this is the fun part of this sport, is that it's so infant. We're still learning how to train. We're still learning what's possible. A lot of it is, I think, rooted in watching other people push the limit, and that's what's happening now. How many sub-8s we're seeing now? It's like, if you're not going sub-8, basically, it's not of much news. So, yeah. And that was rare. So for me, I've given it some thought. I think in Arizona, I think eventually I can get into that 49-minute pack. I was 53. I think I can get into 49. The front swimmer was 45, so still 4 minutes down. But I think I can get. I think I can ride 4 flat. I was 315 watts this year. I think I can push. I think my upper limit's probably about 330. You do the math on that, I'd probably be closer to 4 flat. And then without a doubt, I know I can run 238. With the proper training and that sort of thing. So add all those numbers together and it's about 730. So I think that will be the end of my career if I can break 730, and I will say, you know what, I did the absolute best I could do with this body, with the aerodynamics and all that stuff. That's the best that I could possibly do, and that's certainly something that I will be looking to do and work towards over the next 8 years, let's say.
Exciting times, man. We've got you, we've got Jan, we've got Ali Brownlee coming over. You get you three head to head in a race, and that sub 730 could definitely be on, couldn't it?
Yeah, I'm excited to with Alistair, with the news of him focusing potentially on 70.3 Worlds this year. I'm very, very excited. I think that's going to bring a totally new mix to things, because obviously he's going to be coming out of the water basically first, and one of the big things I think about him, though, is he's into pushing the absolute limit. So he's not going to be waiting up for a pack or anything. He's going to smash that bike right off the front, and that's going to string everything out. It really could be a great addition to the sport, having a guy like that who's going to smash that bike on the front, who's a great swimmer. So
yeah,
I'm excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, well, Lionel, listen, thank you so much. You've been incredibly generous with your time, and it's been brilliant to catch up with you again. And congratulations on that 744. That's one of the all-time great performances, I think. And considering your preparation for it, I'm so excited to see what you're going to do when you turn your attention back to concentrating on Ironman in a couple of years' time, man. So I hope we can get you back on for another update in another year's time or so.
Hey, Rob, thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's been absolutely brilliant, mate. Thank you very much, and we'll talk to you again soon.
No problem. Take care.
There we go. What a top guy. I really think he's a really brilliant guy.
He's a very, very nice guy.
And it's great to hear like a real professional going into Kona completely underdone, completely underprepared, and then going in and setting a what is an official world record, although he acknowledges people have been faster at Roth. But the preparation that he's done for that, in terms of, I'm just going to extend my long run and my long ride every week and get to the point where I'm comfortable that I can handle that kind of ride. It's dead interesting to hear him talk about his actual power numbers relative to what he does on race day, and realize even the guy who breaks the world record has these massive moments of doubt 6 weeks out as to whether he can even finish.
I think it just shows that we are all human, and actually those self-doubts, you're not the only one who has them on the start line. Literally ask anyone around you, and I would say 90% of people would probably admit, ooh, there's a little bit of you, isn't it? It's that unknown.
Yeah, totally. And I love that he went to Kona just going, I'm just going to see how this goes. I haven't done very many long rides. Let's just see what happens. I reckon I'm fit. Oh, no, I'm not. It's a long way back now. I just think that's great. What a brilliant just turn up and give it a go attitude.
Well, I guess what's to lose sometimes? What is to lose? And if you'd sort of stay at home or whatever, then you'd never know. So at least...
Totally. Off the back of the disappointment of the World 70.3 Championships, I say good on him for just fronting up and giving it a go, because that ultimately formed the springboard for what ended up being a world record about a month later.
Totally. So you see, honestly, Rob, there are so many different possibilities to success, if that makes sense. And that's really cool.
It's brilliant. And I love that we get to talk to people about this, because it's so easy to assume that something different goes on in the brains of the highest performers. And then when you find out they've got the same fears and the same doubts that we all do as well, it makes you think, right, shut up, little voice that says don't be bothered today. Yeah. Just get out there and do it.
Get out there and do it. I mean, even when we spoke to Chrissy Wellington, she was saying that she had so many doubts, didn't she?
Yeah. We have to get her back on, Hells. We should try and have a yearly date. Get you a yearly date with Chrissy Wellington and get her back on. Even if you just ask her the same questions again. Just love having her on.
Repeat the interview.
Yeah, there you go. But you're dead right. Hearing that possibly I'm not going to say undisputed, but one of the greatest athletes over the iron distance of all time has those doubts as well. You can certainly then give yourself a break when you start having them, can't you?
Yeah, exactly. And Rob, talking of sort of other athletes and interviews that we do and are doing, if you're listening to this before Thursday, we're going to be speaking to Rachel Joyce. So if you want us to ask her anything in particular, then let us know. Get in touch with us on Twitter and we can put the question to her. We are OA Try Podcast on Twitter.
Fantastic. So that'll be before Thursday, the 12th of January 2017, for anyone who's listening in the future.
Correct. Honestly, Rob,
I've missed it.
Yes, totally. I am so confused with what day of the week it is, which is why I was just like, before Thursday. Yeah. It's like on the calendar. It's like, that's happening on Thursday. My mind is
I've got a massive, I've bought a massive 2017 year planner. It must be A1 size, and it's got coloured stickers all over it, and it's been saving my life sitting at this desk working out what's going on in the future. It's great to be busy, isn't it? It's exciting, but boy, it kind of get on top of you sometimes.
Yeah, I'm not loving January at the moment, but I know once January's out the way, then it'll get exciting. There's a few good things in January, but it's mainly work filled, and that's never that exciting, is it?
You've got to find a little adventure every day. Let's go for another run this Friday. Let's do that. That'll make the week go by quickly.
Yeah, no. Oh, actually, it is a possibility. Yes, because I'm on an early shift. Right, done, deal.
Done, deal.
Yep, deal.
Brilliant. Right, I'm up for it again. I'm gonna have to get some. It might be snowing as well.
Oh, snowy run, even better.
It says it's going to be snowy on the forecast, so we'll see. Fingers crossed, eh? Yeah. Right, let's go over now then. We've got the news section. News is sponsored by Precision Hydration. So if you're looking for hydration salts to help sort you out with those night cramps or to help you out with your performances, you can use the code Oxygenaddict10 over at precisionhydration.com to get yourself a big discount there. We've got a clip here, Helen, because you have been and had the proper in-the-flesh sweat test done, haven't you?
I have. It was before Christmas, and it was really cool because Precision Hydration came to our local leisure centre, and Johnny tested a load of people who turned up that evening, and I think they're quite available to do that kind of thing. So if it is something in your tri club that you're interested in, then get in touch with the guys at Precision Hydration. So yeah, let's have a listen to exactly what happened when I got sweat tested.
I'm Johnny. I'm one of the team from Precision Hydration. I've come up from Bournemouth to see you guys at Knutsford this evening to run a hydration workshop and do some sweat testing with some of your athletes.
Perfect, and I think I'm the first guinea pig, aren't I?
Yeah, it's all kicking off with you this evening, so we'll see how it goes, and you can report back to the others before they get here. Okay, so first of all, it's a non-exercise sweat test that sort of surprises a lot of athletes. Before they get here, they turn up in their kit and expect to get on a bike and get them sweating, but we just sit you down in a chair here, put a couple of electrodes on your forearm to induce you to sweat, and then take a sample from you. That whole process takes about 15 or 20 minutes. And then we run that through our analyzer to ascertain the amount of sodium you lose in your sweat per litre. And then we talk to you about your training habits, your racing habits, and other environmental factors that come into play, and build yourself a personalised hydration plan based around our different strengths.
And that's quite interesting, because I thought, the other day I was on the turbo and I was like, this would be ideal for them, all this sweat literally dripping off me. But now I'm sat here, I'm in jeans, I've got a fleece on, t-shirt, nothing special at all.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it, really. It's non-invasive to any of your training, and a lot of guys who are training very hard don't want to sort of compromise on any of their training sessions to get a test like this done. So it's great that we can just take 20 or 30 minutes of your time to go through the whole process.
Fine, so let's get started then.
Great, so the first thing I'm going to do is just wipe your forearm down. Just put some deionised water.
So what is this going on then?
This is just deionised water to clean down the arm, get rid of any dead skin or dirt off the forearm. It also increases the conductivity for when we put the electrodes on your forearm. Now I've got this little box here with some wires coming out of it. It looks a bit scary, but it's not at all.
There are no needles, I'm fine.
No needles, no, none of that.
It does look quite high tech though. I like your little system here. So we've got, you've just put the liquid on me, and then the box with the black and red wires coming out, and then you've got your laptop, and you've got another monitor thing over there, and that's pretty much it, isn't it?
Yeah, we travel with the kit all over the world. So we've got a long list of pro clients in America. We've got a few NFL teams, NBA teams that we work with. So yeah, it's great that we can travel the equipment. The tests actually come from cystic fibrosis testing in hospitals. So infants are tested at an early stage to give an early marker for further cystic fibrosis testing, and we've simply lifted the testing out of that environment, brought it into the sport and exercise environment to test the healthy variants for athletes.
And what difference have you found, and have Precision Hydration found actually from doing all of these tests? What difference has it made to athletes?
So first of all, there's a huge variance in the amount of sodium that athletes lose in their sweat. Some athletes we test lose as little as 250 milligrams of sodium per litre of their sweat, and others are 10 times more than that. So it's important to recognise that variance and look to individualise the supplementation, and it becomes more and more sort of relevant to those athletes racing over a longer distance, such as yourselves, racing over Ironmans, half Ironmans and Ironmans as triathletes. I'm just going to flick on the inducer. Actually, you'll hear it beep. This process lasts 4 or 5 minutes, and this will just elicit a maximal sweat response on just a 2 pence sized piece of your forearm.
Because that's it. So at the moment on my arm, so after you cleaned it, you then put two, it looks like little electrode-y things, but correct, you can explain exactly what they are. I've got a red one and a black one on my forearm. So exactly what is happening in a simple way?
Yeah, in a very, very simple way. We're just getting a chemical called pilocarpine into the skin. And we looked at applying a topical cream, but you don't get enough chemical under the skin. Nobody likes needles or an injection. So we use this process called iontophoresis, where we run a small electrical charge through your arm. And under the positive electrode, the pilocarpine, which is positively charged, is repelled and pushed into the surface of the skin. So you might feel a small sort of pins and needles type sensation under that.
Yeah, there's a bit of like tingling, but like really, I hate needles. I mean, we are not talking anything like needles. You can just feel that there's something
going on. Yeah, and then as I said, this stays on your arm for 4 or 5 minutes. On that patch, you'll sweat as if you're in a heat chamber, really going at it quite hard. We'll take these electrodes off, wipe that spot down so that it's clean, and then put a collector on your arm and start to collect some of the sweat you're producing. Simple as that.
And you said that, it's made a big difference to athletes, but you also said that, it's not just triathletes that you're working with then.
No, that's right. We work very closely with a lot of rugby teams and football teams in the UK, in the Premier League and at national team level. And then we also do a lot of work in the NFL and NBA and the American leagues. So Andy, the founder of the business, has been over there 10 times this year, and I've been over there half that, but we're over there a lot, and there's a lot of travelling to go and see those clients and sweat test them and provide the consultation off the back of the testing. Yeah.
And are there many companies who do the same, or you guys are the market leader, aren't you?
Yeah, we are, as we call ourselves, the sweat experts. So the testing that we offer is exclusive to us in this environment. Outside of the cystic fibrosis testing environment, we have exclusivity over the testing. Gatorade and some of the other sort of huge companies do patch sweat testing with a lot of their high-end athletes, so Olympians and that kind of standard. They'll go in and spend 30 minutes on a treadmill or on a bike and get their sweat tested in that way. But this quick and easy method that's considered to be a bit more reliable than that is exclusive to us. Yeah.
That's pretty unique. That's quite amazing. So when you're helping out with clubs in the Premier League and stuff, would they come to you and say, look, we have major issues with cramping, especially when it goes into extra time or something like that, and you're like, bingo, we can help with this?
Yeah, sometimes. At that level, in those environments, every little edge they can get is important to them, particularly, as you say, in those extreme situations where they're playing abroad or for extra time, or they might just have some players who are more prone to issues. And often those players have higher sweat sodium losses and require some more aggressive replacement. So in those situations, there's various reasons they jump to do the testing. Sometimes it's just about identifying those red flag players and making sure they've got protocols in place to look after them correctly. But yeah, as you know, we're a very small business and we don't do any advertising to the pro teams. They sort of come to us and staff move around and we get pulled around with them because they generally get on very well with the systems that we put in place.
Amazing. So these have now been on my arm for, would you say 2 minutes maybe?
Yeah, I think about that, and you'll hear, I'm not sure whether the listeners will hear, but you'll hear another beep from the machine to say that this process is finished. And as I said, under the red electrode you'll be sweating at a maximal sweat response, and then I've just got this little collector prepared to go onto your arm. I'll wipe down the spot because when I take the electrode off, you'll see that there's already some sweat collecting on that spot. We'll wipe that clean and then pop this collector on your arm, and at that point we'll draw up a sample of your sweat by capillary action, and as soon as we've got enough of a sample, we can take that off your arm and run it through the machine to see where your numbers are.
Is there a difference between men and women when it comes to sweat?
Not a significant one. I haven't looked at the latest data we've got, but the last time we sat down and looked at the wealth of sweat test data we've got, there was not a real difference between the concentration of sweat between men and women. It's a bell curve distribution, as you'd expect, with quite a lot of people in the middle bounds, and then a percentage of people very high and very low as outliers. But as much as close, sort of nearly 20% of our database are over 65 millimoles of sweat sodium loss per litre, which is very significant. So they'd be utilising the strongest drinks that we offer, which is not an insignificant amount of people that we meet. So yeah, there's a huge range.
And what causes people to sweat differently?
So largely genetics is a big part. So the concentration that we're testing on you today won't really change for you as an individual. So we only really recommend you have one test, because we've done a lot of tests on the same athletes ourselves and we haven't seen enough variance for our recommendations to change. So once you've had your test, you understand what you're losing, and then only if your exercise habits or your racing habits change significantly would your recommendation from us change significantly. So once you've done your test, we know where you're at. So that sort of takes care of your sweat concentration, it's largely genetically determined. And then the other variable that is more obvious to us is your sweat rate. So some people quite clearly in the gym sweat a huge amount. I'm one of those individuals, and others
never wear a grey top.
Yeah, exactly. And others, sit on the spin bike in the class and appear to have not done anything behind you for the whole session, which is frustrating. But it's one of those things. Again, some of that's genetically determined, and some of that will change depending on the environment you're in, whether you're racing here or out in Kona. Your sweat rate will vary, so we need to take that into account. But we can still broadly categorise you as somebody who sweats to a low volume, or high, or very high.
Fine. And I think this went beep, didn't it?
It did, yeah. You heard that. I'm not sure whether anyone at home did, but it did beep. So we'll take these electrodes off your arm.
I love how quick and easy this is.
Yeah, it's pretty stress-free, isn't it?
Yeah.
The record for us is testing just under 80 athletes in a day at a baseball team. So you can get a lot of athletes done when you know what you're doing.
Wow. Now, what are you seeing there?
So we've got these two little red dots on your arm where the electrodes have been. You can see under the red one that it's a little bit sweaty already, so I'll just wipe that clean, as I said, and then pop this collector directly over that spot to start to draw up some of that sweat.
So this literally now is a blue sort of little collecting
yeah, we call
mechanism.
it a macroduct.
Okay.
Yeah.
The macroduct. The
macroduct
macroduct
is
is now
term.
okay, and it looks like a spiral. You know those kind of things that you'd put a 2-penny piece in at the garden centre when you were younger, and it would pop out the bottom.
And it goes
it's
all
like
the way around.
yeah. It's kind of a mini version of one of them.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's similar. Essentially, it's a coiled bit of tubing, hollow bit of tubing with a that connects to the back of this collector, and then as you sweat into the back of the collector, it'll start to slowly draw up your sweat through the tube. And once we've got enough sample, there's actually a bit of blue dye in the back of there. Often I'll tell people they sweat blue fluid, but that's not the case. It's dyed so I can see it, and then we run that through the machine and get your numbers.
So we've got someone else here. Claire is having a sweat test as well. And Claire, can you just describe what your I've forgotten the technical term.
The macroduct.
What can you see?
The macroduct is kind of got lots of little circles in. I've got a little trail of blue that's slowly creeping round, which is obviously the sweat the blue dye to show the sweat that's underneath the macroduct.
And Johnny, can you tell now, just from looking at that, can you have a little idea of what that means, the turquoise?
So the only thing I could really tell at this point is subjectively you can get a bit of an idea about somebody's sweat rate. If they fill this, and Andy Blow, who's spoken on the podcast a few times, he'll fill one of these collectors in a minute and a half flat. His sweat rate's exceptional. And other people sometimes will take 15 or 20 minutes if their sweat rate's quite low. So you can get a bit of a feel for somebody's sweat rate, but more than that, you can't really tell too much, no.
A minute and a half?
He's got an excessive sweat rate, that man, yeah.
Wow, that's quite incredible. Mine's not really doing much at the moment, but we just have to be patient.
Yeah, it'll take a few minutes for it to build up enough pressure from underneath.
And why would you say, why is it so important that we do get our hydration right?
So as a triathlete, as we're talking about triathlon this evening, somebody who's racing an Ironman will spend an extraordinary amount of time training and preparing for their A races. And something as simple as getting your sweat tested to understand your sodium losses and to be better informed when it comes to hydration, which, as we all know, is a very important topic to keep on top of, particularly if you're out racing abroad. It's a very easy thing to do. We're going to sit here for 30 minutes and rattle through this test and give you the bounds to go away and do some very well-informed trial and error for you as an athlete. So it's a very easy thing to do, and it's really not that expensive compared to a lot of the other, the amount you spend on your aero wheels to shave off just a few tenths here and there. It's a very easy process, and it's very cost effective to potentially cover yourself if you're somebody who really struggles in the heat.
And I remember when Andy was on the podcast back at Ironman UK just around that time, wasn't he? And I just remember him saying that he used to struggle so much in races, and he didn't ever really realise quite what that problem was. Yeah,
I mean, Andy's the reason the company was born, because he was a very, very good Olympic distance athlete, and then really started to struggle when he was racing over the longer distances. And it wasn't until he got his sweat tested with now our sort of doctor in the business that he understood his losses, and at that point he more aggressively could supplement his sodium, and pretty much overnight he was able to produce the sort of performances he expected of himself. And it's hilarious actually to now Rob's been tested, and the two of them were racing each other at a time. He was in a similar position actually as two outliers on the outside of the spectrum, both with sweat rate with Andy and sweat concentration.
And have you noticed that? Thanks for pointing that out. We do have some movement. There is a little bit of turquoise appearing now in the middle of the macroduct.
I might actually just test Claire's concentration.
Yeah, let's do it. Right. Can I stand up and move around? Brilliant. Okay.
Move around, just relax your arm
so,
to the side.
Yeah, sure.
So this is the clever bit, really. I've got a needle in my hand here, but it's not going anywhere near you. It's just going in the end of the tubing.
I literally hate needles.
I'm not a big fan.
So we're both looking away.
So I'm just going to pop this plastic case off the collector like that, and that exposes the tubing. And I just peel this piece of tubing out of the collector that. There you go. And there you can see your sweat in the tube.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So that coiled thing which I was describing is like the 2p thing that you would put down the machine. It uncoils, and you've now got a needle, which I'm being quite brave at, and actually seeing a needle close up, and you put that in the end.
It's a good 10 inches from the forearm though.
And so what's next?
Yeah, I'll just pop the needle in the end of the tube to stop the sweat falling out, and then snip the tube off at the collector. You can take that collector off your arm once I've snipped it, Claire. And then I'm left with a piece of tube with a sample of Claire's sweat in it. And then I'll connect this to the analyzer, and we'll see what concentration of salt she's got in her sweat.
Okay. And Claire, are you racing abroad next year?
I'm racing the long distance World Triathlon Championships in Canada at the end of August.
So that could actually be pretty hot. Yeah. Okay. So is that part of the reason why you've come along today to do it?
Yeah, and also I don't feel as though I'm a very heavy sweater, but what the concentration is, I haven't got a clue.
So we're going to find out.
I just tend to go beetroot red rather than sweat.
We'll see.
So we've got some numbers appearing now on the screen.
Yeah, so I'll just run this back through once more. But at first pass, you're not looking to have an excessive concentration, to be honest. 41 millimoles is 42 millimoles is around about average in terms of concentration loss. So I'll just run that through once more to be sure. There you go, 42, 43, 43, which is almost spot on our average concentration, right at the middle of the bell curve.
Okay. That's good to know.
There you go. So what we'll do is we'll talk to you about your plans for next year, Claire, and your what you're going to be doing in training up until then, and then we'll build a plan for you around the different strength drinks, because in some situations, even though your concentration is relatively modest, you'll still utilise some of the strongest drinks. When you're racing out in Canada, you'll preload with the strongest drink we've got, and then we might look to bring you down a little bit in terms of concentration during the event itself. And in training, you might equally be using a slightly less strong drink. But we'll talk you through that once we've finished on the recording.
And do the strengths differ depending on whether you swim, biking or running, or are they the same across?
So generally, only those people who aren't particularly good at swimming will drink a lot in the swim. So we try and avoid that. We try and, first of all, you preload before the race to make sure you're fully topped up in terms of fluid and sodium. We will elevate your blood plasma volume using the strongest drink that we have, and that will involve a 500ml bottle of the strong stuff the night before and a 500ml bottle of the strong stuff the morning of the race. So you're looking to finish that 60 to 90 minutes before you start. And then for you, you're not going to drink anything on the swim, ideally. If it's a sea swim, then you might want to have a small bottle of water in transition just to rinse your mouth and spit it out. Then on the bike, you'll probably, for you, be starting with 1,000 strength on the bike, and you might want to utilise some salt capsules towards the end of the bike so you can back off on your fluid intake, so you're not starting the run with a lot of stuff in your stomach sloshing around. At that point, with the distance race you're racing, you said it was 18 miles a run. It's an interesting different distance,
18 miles, yeah.
So at that point you might want to have some sweat salt capsules with you so that you can just use the water that's on the roadside rather than a drink that you've never tried before. You can then swallow your electrolytes, and you can test that in training before you go out there and know that you're reliant on what you've got in your own bag. Does that make sense?
Yeah, interesting.
You've mentioned as well about how you've got the products which you can use in training. Is that like every time you are training, or just a couple of times a week, or what would you recommend?
So you don't need to be drinking electrolytes all the time. It's simply, it's a waste of your money, basically. Anything over 90 minutes, when you're sweating really quite heavily, is where I'd start to suggest you use some electrolytes. So your long rides at the weekends for you Claire, would be a good idea. Any spin sessions or long pool sessions, I'd have a bottle on the side of the pool potentially. So that's one scenario, a longer, harder session where you're sweating a lot. If you've got a lot of training sessions in a week though, it might be worth including some supplementation to make sure you don't get any micro depletion of sodium through the week. So the two sort of situations are worth thinking about alongside each other. We'll talk through your planned training volume and the number of sessions you're looking to do each week through running up to your event next year to work out where it's going to be best to target supplementation. But you don't need to be drinking electrolytes all the time. You're going to be getting some sodium from your food and fluid through the day. So as long as you're on top of things, you should be okay for a lot of the sessions you do.
And you mentioned then about we should get it, normally in our diet. What about things like putting salt on veg? I mean, if we are in a heavy training block, is that like a good idea?
Often athletes will do that without even realising it, because the demand for sodium from the body is a little bit stronger for athletes. Government guidelines for sodium intake daily is not a significant amount of sodium, and if you look at a typical triathlete and the sort of sweat losses they'd be experiencing throughout the week of training, you're going to need some supplementation around some of the key areas to make sure you don't get depleted before you get to the weekend. So yeah, as I say, some targeted replacement and using a bit of common sense as to when to use and when not to use electrolytes is strongly recommended. You don't need to be drinking them all the time.
What about in winter as well? Does that make a difference? Because at the moment here in the UK we've got it's a bit cooler.
Yeah, the club here this evening, they were doing a spin session inside, which is very hot.
Have you been in there? It's like it's boiling.
Yeah, so often athletes forget actually through the winter how important staying on top of hydration and other aspects of their nutrition and things are. It's the biggest training period for all of us as athletes, the off season, and making sure you're getting the most out of each session is really important. If you're going out on the bike, you've often got more kit on, and it might not be quite as obvious when you're out there that you're sweating, but you're still losing fluid and electrolytes. So still maintaining some supplementation through the winter is definitely advised.
What about for not everyone is doing, Ironman or half Ironman? A lot of people are working towards sprint or Olympic. Is the advice different for them? Yeah, slightly.
I mean, again, we need to look at their physiology in terms of the amount of sodium they're losing as an individual. But preloading before the event for the shorter events becomes even more significant, because it's all about getting to the start line in the best possible shape and maybe having a little bit of fluid on the bike, but you won't drink much at all in that situation. Those guys also, just because they're racing over the shorter distances, they'll still have quite significant training demands, and potentially for them that's where the supplementation is also more important, to make sure they're getting as much out of those sessions as they can do running into the shorter events.
We all saw the Brownlees in Mexico. Would that have had, what happened to Johnny? Do you think that might have had something to do with sort of sweat rates and things? Maybe.
I think in that situation, I think it's probably more heat stress, hitting a heat stroke than electrolytes, but you can never be sure with we don't have any information about it really. But
you haven't tested them?
No, we haven't, no. But I would suggest from looking at the outside of that, I think it's more due to heat stress in that situation. Yeah.
What's happening with mine now?
So we're ready to test yours as well now, so I can go through the same process with yours. You can close your eyes when I say
when the needle comes nearby.
Yeah, when I pick it up off the desk.
No, I think it's probably quite good having to see a needle quite so close, because really it's not that scary. Apart from it is when it comes in now. No, it's fine. I can cope. No, it's good actually. This might get me over my fear of needles.
Yeah, it's not that stressful.
So again, we've just clipped it from the end. You've got the sweat in the coil, and then you'll just attach it to the machine.
Yeah, there you go. You can take that collector off your arm, and I'll run this through the machine. Where do you think you'll be then, Helen? Higher or low?
I'm thinking it's going to be... Well, it looks like there's less in there, to be honest. So I'm going lower, but I might be wrong.
We'll see. Let's have a look.
You can hear the buzzing there of the machine working.
There's somebody who knows their body. Slightly lower.
It is, isn't it?
Let's have a look.
Let's try again.
So a very low number on this machine would be down in the low teens of concentration. Right. And Andy's got a sweat concentration of 90 millimoles. So we've got a bit of an internal joke that we can calibrate the machine with his sweat, because it's right on the calibration standard. But you're coming out at 36, which is towards the lower end of the bell curve, but still relatively average, to be honest. Okay. You're not excessively low, and certainly not in the high bounds. Yeah, 37.
And so what would the recommendations then be?
So what we'll do now is I'll talk to you both about your perceived sweat rate and what racing you've got planned and training, and talk to you about some of the environmental factors that come into play, because although this is a very accurate physiological variable we can take from you, it certainly doesn't tell us the whole story. And it's important we take into account those other variables when we make your recommendations. So we'll sit down and talk about your sweat rate, what your plans are for racing next year and training, any cramping history and things like that, and then build your personalised hydration reports around that through our online software. And then you'll get an email with your recommendation broken down. We then send you off with a little bundle of products so you can go and test the protocol that we've given you, and we encourage you to keep in touch, because this is the start of your relationship with us, and we maintain quite close relationships with a lot of our customers that come back and say, well, this isn't quite working for me, or this is working really well, what do you think about me changing to tweaking little things? So from here forwards we'll advise you to keep in touch, and we'll help you refine these things as you go, for Claire as she builds into racing in Canada next year.
And have you had a lot of athletes actually come back to you, getting in touch and saying, well, I mean, we've heard Rob talk about it a lot, but saying, oh my goodness, I wish I'd known about this sooner, and that has made a massive difference?
Yeah, I mean, particularly those guys on the high end, to be honest. We've got a strong, although we haven't sweat tested a huge amount of people, we've got a very loyal following, because for a lot of people we test, it makes a significant difference. There's a handful of people who, like Andy and Rob, who really struggle to race over those longer distances without the supplementation. I tested an athlete last week who had been in the medical tent both times with his Ironman, and he was banned by his wife to do another one. And we sweat tested him. He was very, very high on the scale, and we've put him a plan in place, and I don't think his wife's very happy, but I think he's going to have another go now. So in some instances it is a real game changer, and for others it's more of a marginal gain and understanding a little bit more about yourself as an athlete. But you're right, for some people it does certainly change things. Yeah.
And what are some of the signs for people who maybe can't have a one-on-one sweat test like we're having right now? What should they be looking out for? I think you do like an online sweat test as well, don't you?
That's right. We've got an online sweat test on our website, precisionhydration.com. You just go to our homepage and click take the test, and there's you got to run through 8 questions, and that will give you an approximation as to your losses. And behind the buttons in those results pages is quite a detailed description as to how to use the products and in what situations they'll be most beneficial to you. And I'd encourage athletes to sort of use that as a starting point. Even if you would like to go and do an advanced sweat test that we've been through today, you can use that as a start point. Start to use some of the products and see how you get on. And then get back in touch with us if you've got more questions. That's no problem at all. That's what we're all about. And we're running a hydration workshop with Knutsford this evening. And if you're interested in us coming out to visit your club and run a workshop and do some testing, then get in touch as well, because we're all about getting out on the road and meeting athletes and spending time with them. So don't hesitate to reach out to us.
So Rob, it turns out that I don't really have much sodium. I don't have a high sodium concentration level.
Okay.
Compared to the general athlete population, I'm pretty low, to be honest. So
good. That bodes well for Kona.
Shut up.
See how I just slipped that in there? I'm being serious, Helen. That's a big piece of the puzzle. If you don't sweat much and you don't sweat very salty, that's another less thing you've got to worry about taking care of. It's not like me going and wondering if I'm going to end up in the emergency room, is it? That's great.
Yeah. So
physiology's lined up for it.
Yeah,
just go and get your flight booked. Go and book it now.
Everything else might not be. So yeah, it was really, really interesting though, Rob. Speaking to those guys, and as you could hear, we were all quite different on the evening. A few people were pretty similar, and we will hear a little bit more from Johnny next week about specifically how I would use precision hydration products during my training and racing, and what I would need to take to replace some of that sodium lost when I am training and racing.
And I think it's such a big put your mind at rest thing, and actually knowing that number and knowing that it isn't going to cause you a problem because you can take care of it really easily. To be fair, I thought Johnny's talk was really fascinating. He did a brilliant job. And if anyone out there is listening and fancies getting the boys down to your club or to your team, or even if you've got 4 or 5 of you together who all want to have a sweat test done, Precision Hydration have said they're on a road show, aren't they? They're on the tour. They're getting their great big green van and come down and visit you and do the sweat test and deliver this seminar that they do. So anyone who's in charge, head coaches or people, chairman of clubs and things like that, or chairpersons I should say of clubs, get in touch with Precision Hydration through the email link on their website, precisionhydration.com, and you can arrange for them to come down and do a talk for you and get some sweat tests done. Really good. We'll look forward to hearing the next part of that next week, Hels.
Yeah, totally. And as you heard, it's not just triathletes that they work with. They worked with, the likes of Joey Barton, the footballer, some of the rugby players, so like James Haskell of England and Wasps. They go out to the States and work with
loads of the American footballers they've worked with, haven't they?
Baseball teams and everything. So they really do know their stuff. And
why not goes the best, I reckon.
Well,
but if you can go to the best, why not go to the best? The people with the most experience in the world, get to see them. It's available. Get it booked.
The bit I was going to say though, Rob, is that I am not from a science background, right? So I did science at school, whatever. But my point is that they make it all very easy to understand.
Even I could understand it. That's how easy to understand they made it.
Exactly. Anyway, Rob, there's a little bit of news.
Let's do some news, There's some news going on.
Well,
do you want to start with Xterra Wales?
Yes, because we still don't know what's going on, right? So, we said last week that there had been a posting on Facebook saying that it was cancelled.
Yeah.
The latest is that they say, so this was posted on January the 6th, Xterra Wales will now be run by a new management team. A new event Facebook page will be up and running very soon. This Facebook page will be removed in a few days. All entries are safe and you will receive an email soon updating you. But as of sort of 2 days still after that, people still hadn't received an email. There's, a lot of replies to that post. Some people are really, really annoyed, saying, we've already cancelled accommodation and annual leave, made other plans. People are saying, you need to be more open about this. People are really worried about it might just be a mashed together event. And basically they have made these announcements on Facebook, and people aren't particularly happy about that, because not everyone is on Facebook. So people are saying that it's like shambles. Others are saying, this sounds really familiar for Xterra in the UK because they've had problems in the past, haven't they? And some people have got in touch with Eventbrite, who would be the ones who basically just sell the entry, if that makes sense. So nothing to do with it. It's almost like
payment processor.
Yeah. And then she quite rightly, like, nothing to do with us. So yeah, I think there's just still quite a lot of confusion. Other people are saying, great news that an event is still going to go ahead. So yeah, it just sounds
terrible timing on our part to put an interview out a couple of weeks before this happens. Sorry to anyone who listened to it. We feel quite guilty about it, to be honest.
I feel really guilty, but at the same time, I don't know. I feel a bit like,
send us an email and let us know what's going on, kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. I almost feel a bit like I feel like I've been conned.
Yeah.
And because I haven't had any explanation, and I tried to email, and I haven't heard. I have emailed and I haven't heard anything. So I don't know.
Well, fingers crossed it'll all get sorted soon. I guess that's all we can do at this point,
crossed.
Isn't it? Yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
And I guess some more positive news that's come out. A great article in the Yorkshire Post on Ali Brownlee moving up some distances.
Yeah, this is like no surprise, Rob. He's sort of said it after getting gold in the Rio Olympics that Ironman is on his radar. The bit that he does say in the Yorkshire Post is that he is definitely not going to do the whole of the World Series in this season. And again, I'd say that's no surprise. He hasn't done the whole of the series for a couple of years. He says, I'm going to do the ones that suit me. And I guess one of those is in Leeds, obviously. Then I'll be looking at some other kind of racing. So it's whether he tries to qualify for the 70.3 World Championships, which could be a possibility, couldn't it?
I think that's the logical way for him to go, isn't it? I think he'll go 70.3 next year.
Yeah. Before
looking at Ironman the year after. In fact, he hints at that, doesn't he? In that quote at the end, it says, it's obviously very long and extreme, but we will see. I'll probably not be going that extreme next year.
Exactly. So it seems that he'll mix World Triathlon Series and perhaps a couple of 70.3s in 2017, and then, hopefully make his Ironman debut in 2018. And Javier Gomez has also said he wants to be in Hawaii, doesn't he? When did he say originally? I'm sure he said originally 2018, but
2018. Yeah,
that would be interesting, wouldn't it?
That'd be a great race. You'll have Frodeno at the top of his powers as an iron distance athlete.
An Olympic champion, yep, correct.
An Olympic champion. But he'll be he'll have a couple more years of top level racing at iron distance, and he'll have the distance dialed by then. And then you've got Gomez and Brownlee coming in to have a shot at him. That'll just be a fantastic race, won't it?
It would be amazing to see.
Please let's see that race. Please let's see that race.
How many people would want to see that? And you could just imagine the three of them.
See it in the flesh, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, that'd be so awesome. Definitely be staying up for that one.
You're going to be there, aren't you, Rob?
Yeah, I'll be there at the roadside.
There you go.
We'll see.
We will
this
see.
time next year, Rodney, we'll be millionaires, right?
No.
All right, well, listen, that just about wraps up this week's show, doesn't it?
I think it does, Rob, yes.
Bit of a long one with all the extra bits and bobs in, but just again to say thank you very much to our sponsors, our new sponsor, tgstore.co.uk. Get over there and check out their bike and cycle clothing. precisionhydration.com. Make sure you check out their hydration workshops if you're a member of a club or something would like to get one of those sorted. Team.oxygenaddict.com. Yeah, we're opening the doors on Monday, the 16th of January, so make sure you're on the waiting list if you're seriously interested in that. And thanks again to all our patrons. And if you want to go over and check out our charity appeal again, the address is justgiving.com/crowdfunding/podcast. And I hope you guys all have a brilliant week, fantastic week. Think of Helen and me slipping and sliding through the snow on our run on Friday. Get out there and do something exciting. Get out there. Everyone has doubts. Get out there and train. Thanks very much for listening. I'm Coach Rob Wilby.
I'm Helen Murray.
You've been listening to the Oxygen Addict Triathlon podcast. Until next week, see ya.